because I have a lot to go through. Last Sunday, I didn't do a live stream. We had a scheduling upset, so we ended up doing a webinar for Get Wisdom on Saturday and one for Sunday. And we're going to be doing two webinars every Sunday now in the future. The first webinar will be at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 3 o'clock Central time, and that will be a one free to the public. And then there's another one that's going to follow that the following hour. So 4 p.m. Central Time and 2 p.m. out on the West Coast. And that'll be for the getwisdom.com supporters. So in that webinar, we go into a deeper level on the subject. It kind of looks like there's a trend starting where, for instance, this Sunday, we're going to talk about, after this live stream, we're going to talk about natural disasters and natural disasters on Earth, earthquakes, floods, fires, hurricanes, that kind of thing. And and then in the supporter seminar or webinar, we're going to delve more deeply into that subject. So so we may do that in the future. We may like talk about dementia or Alzheimer's, for our public webinar, and then we'll go more deeply into the subject for the supporters. Through more, when I say more deeply, more detail, more information coming directly from the channeling work that Carl's been doing on some of these subjects. And we have 48 of them now collected up for the webinars that we're going to be doing. So we have pretty close to a year's worth of these webinars, which right now are slated to be free. So I didn't do one last week, so I'm starting this live stream early because I have a lot of stuff to go through. So I'll get a drink of water here, and then we'll get started. This came in from a friend, and I wasn't going to include this, but I just thought it was such a classic example around the New Age movement type of seminars and things that you see out there that are quite popular with light workers and people that are into healing and that kind of thing. And this is from a fellow named Eric who's doing these conferences, I guess primarily United States, perhaps maybe all over the world. But he attracts thousands of people for his training, and so there's a little synopsis in here about the training that he offers, and I just thought that was very interesting because it kind of lines up around this this whole manifester idea. So it looks like you got. So anyway, I'll just read this and then you can come to your own conclusions on it. But I thought it was just a very very classic example. It says, learn how to become part of the reconnective healing field and be infinitely connected to every possibility without complicated techniques or memorization. Interact with the timeless intelligence that found and transformed Eric and thousands of RH professional foundational practitioners worldwide. Entrain with the most coherent, scientifically supported frequencies near all areas of your life. It's scientific. What more could you want? Feel an inner peace within you that is forever yours. It could be shared with others. And meet like-minded people and become part of the consciousness expanding a timeless new community that is healing humanity and our planet. And then the last bullet point is discover how simple it is to access your true eternal essence and confirm for yourself that you are enough. We'll be complete. What a bargain. So it's kind of like, see how easy it is? Anyway, it's kind of this vague litany of things that are about nothing really. But anyway, along with the message about this, we got this. I don't know if you can read it, but it's a pretty popular little cartoon. I'm going to try to hold it up here so you can read. Anyway, hopefully you can read that. Anyway, it says, it shows a line of people, and there's two booths, and it says comforting lies and unpleasant truths. So there's a huge line for the comforting lies, which is right here, comforting lies, and then inconvenient truths. Anyway, there's another version of this that I posted once on Facebook that I like even better. Anyway, enough of that. So also I want to make an announcement that that we have the MAP forum on whyisthistrue.com, and that's the Mercenary Army program. Most people know that as the Secret Space program. And so we have a forum that kind of emphasizes more of the healing aspects, and a place that's not really set up to be an entertainment, about technology and spacecraft and, spacesuits and all this stuff that you see a lot especially on Facebook. There's a lot of these secret space program groups on there where they focus kind of on the entertainment aspect. And so the MAP forum on Why Is This True is more on the healing. A lot of the people on there have had these higher self channelings with Carl Mollison, and some of them are posted there. And so anyway, we had two forum moderators, Mick Schreier and Kevin Trimmel. Kevin Trimmel's he's kind of taken more of a backseat approach to the moderator position there, so we don't hear too much from him, but he checks in from time to time. He's made some really interesting and helpful contributions there. But Mick Schreier now is pretty much the only moderator on the forum. So we think it's important to have a female moderator on there too, because there's quite a few female participants who've really done some serious explorations into their experiences and shared some really valuable stuff there. So we're looking for a female moderator for the MAP forum. So I think there's about maybe 25 people on there right now, with a lot of our higher self channelings posted, a lot of work in many different areas about their experiences and whatnot. And I've learned a lot being able to read there since we started this. I think we started it about maybe 2 months ago. So if you're interested in being a forum moderator, I'll put you in touch with Mick, and you can put a comment on this, not on this video on YouTube, but if you go to Why Is This True, and you go to the comment section for the article that goes along with this live stream, you can just post it there. So a female moderator for the MAP forum on whyisthistrue.com. That's what we're looking for. So Carl and I did a very interesting channeling session with the light being Stanley Kubrick on June 5th. And I asked the following question, which was question number 2. Was the video of your confession regarding the Apollo moon landing a fake? So that's the video of his confession. Was that a fake? And were the Apollo moon landings fake? All of them or some of them? And were you involved? Now, I listened to most of the answer that from the video. I went back. I don't have a transcript of it yet, so I went back and listened to it. I didn't have much time. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I'm pretty sure he did not answer the part of the question whether he was involved or not. And sometimes that happens with some of these questions, and there's a variety of reasons that the questions aren't answered. It could be that in a multi-part question, the question really wasn't conveyed by Carl. Well, how do I say this? It's a consciousness connection that Carl makes through Creator to the light being, in this case, Stanley Kubrick. So Carl actually has to have those questions in mind in order to get the answers back. And if it's a multi-part, sometimes things get lost in the mix in terms of the communication back. And then the light being, a lot of times, has an agenda in terms of conveying information to us that is related to the question, usually answering the question, but usually there's more to it that's based on the intent behind the question and the intent of the light being to get certain pieces of information out. So my impression was that the answer to the question of whether he was involved or not in the fake moon landings, that wasn't clear to me. I don't think he was involved from the answer that we gave, but I'm not sure about that. But he did answer, and my recollection of the answer was that it was very lengthy, and most all the answers in the series are very lengthy. And this one confirmed that at least the first landing was fake. So the moon landing, the first Apollo mission moon landing, was faked. His answer also included that later Apollo missions were successful with manned moon landings. But it seemed like it was more important for him to let us know that humans have been going to the moon for hundreds of years, and journeying to the moons for hundreds of years. In other words, the secret space programs under the tutelage and oversight of the ETs, and these are the negative ETs, of course, is very, very old. And what we're being exposed to now in a fashion is nothing new. So this is like old news being repackaged under the mostly under the guise of the secret space program, with people, becoming whistleblowers and whatnot. And we've kind of tied it to this Roswell, you know, paperclip, and the Werner von Braun and the space program, and now we have this secret space program, which is kind of flourishing with the state, the government's involvement, and the military's involvement with off-planet exploration and military operations and whatnot, as if it's new. It's not new. It's very old. It's been going on for hundreds of years. So kind of an interesting emphasis coming through in the answer to that question. And this is for the recent channeling session that we did with Stanley Kubrick. And so in the article that goes along with this live stream, I put some links in there about about the interview that he did, but he didn't do the interview. That person was an imposter. That person was not Stanley Kubrick. So that video that's going around, has been out, I think, since 2015, about Stanley Kubrick admitting that he was part of the fake moon landings. That video itself is a fake. So you can check that out. Come to your own conclusions about that. That was my conclusion. And after becoming more familiar with Stanley Kubrick himself, it's pretty easy to tell that fellow is not Stanley Kubrick. The other interesting thing that came out in that channeling was that he said he had an entity attached to him. This is a lost soul, spirit entity. I don't know if it's a hybrid or not, but this being was a brother of his from another incarnation that was attached to him, and I think the energy there was like a belittlement, like you're not good enough, that kind of a thing. That was the energy that was coming forth from this entity attachment, so that Stanley, as a child, would feel less than. I guess that's the way to put it, and that's if I remember his answer correctly. And perhaps his reaction to the attachment to excel in his craft as a chess player, which he was an accomplished chess player as a young man, as a boy, and as a young man. He actually made an income, a little bit of an income as a chess player in New York, and then later as a photographer for Look magazine, and then ultimately as a filmmaker. So I think he had a lot of personal pressure on himself to really excel in those areas, and which as a filmmaker, he certainly did. So, and since all this has come up, I've become fascinated with Kubrick's films and what he says about them, which isn't much. But I have to admit that I found nothing in his interviews or his testimony as a light being that would lead me to believe that he consciously pursued any special esoteric knowledge. And if he did, he was keeping quiet about that in the interview as a light being, because that is another potentially dark rabbit hole for people to go down that could potentially be unproductive. And his focus put him on a dark perspective where he seemed to recommend that we would be better off not watching his movies. I thought that was really interesting. But that was the message I got from that channeling, was that he kind of downplayed the messages about his movie. I think they were kind of serving the dark in a large measure, and I don't think he wanted to really give a head nod to that in the channeling series. Now I'm speculating here. A lot of people could come away from that whole series with a lot of other things. Of course, we also saw him say very much the same thing that most of the other light beings have said in the channeling series. So, and my interest was, of course, that, which is the reason I'm doing this in the first place. But I was also interested in being able to read between the lines a little bit as it related to his work as a filmmaker. So I don't think this would be a very popular thing to say amongst diehard Kubrick fans, because I think a lot of people want to read a lot more into his filmmaking expertise than what was actually there. But I have to call it like I see it, and more importantly, the divine realm does not see things the way humans see them. And so, anytime that we can kind of adjust our thinking to become aware of or put our thinking in alignment with the divine realm, I think that's a step in the right direction. So sometimes we can get a little disappointed when we go back and revisit such an interesting figure like Stanley Kubrick. Um, so then that brings us to another person that we're probably going to have on the list at some point, and that is um, Edgar Casey. And so I got this really interesting thing from one of our fellow Lightworker Healing Protocol students who lives in Northern California. Her name is Christine, and she sent me a little article written by Sidney Kirkpatrick, and it's entitled Edgar Casey on Demonic Possession. And so I posted this as part of the article that you can read that goes along with this live stream if you want to read it. It's on whyisthistrue.com, the members page. And there's a link there if you want to go directly to the article itself. And this is the edgarcasey.org site. And but anyway, I'm going to read this. It's kind of long, but that's one of the reasons I started early, because I wanted to put this out there for you, because it's pretty interesting, because this is about mainstream psychology or psychologists, that whole profession of mental health, recognizing demonic possession, which is, you know, if you go searching around, you won't see too many professionals in that arena, giving a head nod to demonic possession. But this is something that came up for Christine, I think, and seeing that it was in such alignment with what we've been learning through the channeling series with Carl Mollison. So, Edgar Casey on Demonic Possession, written by Sidney D. Kirkpatrick, and this is about the Edgar Casey readings. On July 1st, 2016, I was surprised to find an article in the Washington Post on the topic of demonic possession. What's remarkable about this article, written by Dr. Richard Gallagher, is that a major U.S. newspaper had the courage to print it. Editors didn't dismiss the story as a hoax, misunderstanding, or Hollywood hype. His first-person account of paranormal activity was feature news. The ostensible reason is the author's credentials. Dr. Gallagher is a board-certified psychiatrist and professor of clinical psychiatry at New York Medical College and holds degrees from Princeton, Yale, and Columbia. The credentials most relevant to readers, however, is his deep-seated Catholicism. So he's a Catholic. And extracurricular work for the church, which is the stimulus for the article's provocative title. As a psychiatrist, I diagnose mental illness. Also, I help spot demonic possession. So readers will note that many of Dr. Gallagher's concepts support basic principles put forth in the Edgar Casey readings. Among them is the reality of spirit possession. As Casey tells us in reading 5753-1, incarnate entities may influence the thought of an entity. Casey goes further in 522 or 5221-1 by identifying disincarnate entities as the root cause of a woman's physical illness at the onset of 63 or 638-1, given for an elderly patient suffering insanity. Casey overtly declares we have a possession. The challenge that Dr. Gallagher highlights is the difficulty differentiating possession from mental illness. Casey presents a broader range of options and goes further by identifying causes for conditions that can give rise to both mental illness and possession. For instance, Casey identifies spinal injury as the root cause for a loving husband who, seemingly possessed, starts beating his wife and children, 1513-1, and for an artist whose sudden, inexplicable self-destructive behaviors requires that she be tied to a hospital gurney. Add stress-related psychosis into the mix, blood deficiency, including nightmares, and the cancer-created delirium, and proper assessment requires help from the Akashic records. The problem is compounded because trauma and poor health lead to insanity, and insanity can lead to possession. This this is the message conducted for the Glad Helpers Healing Group. So I think he's got the sequences wrong there based on what we've learned from the channeling series. But this is interesting nonetheless because of the professional um, adoption of this theory of possession in entities in any case. This most striking difference between what Gallagher reports and what appears in the Casey readings may be the point of view. Using standard protocols required by the Catholic Church, only one individual profiled in the entire body of Casey readings exhibits the severity of behavior that might qualify for exorcism. He is the alcoholic husband of a man who undergoes a chilling Jekyll and Hyde transformation when he becomes intoxicated, and according to Casey, a malevolent spirit takes control of his body. The church doctrine presents other limitations on our understanding of the spirit world as well. For instance, as the readings make clear, not all spirit communications are diabolic, and not all disincarnates have demonic motives. This is conveyed in another case in which departed loved ones provide comfort to the living. There's a reading that contains a message from a deceased father to his daughter, telling her that love knows no boundaries. Furthermore, possession may have a karmic component that is not recognized by the church. For example, there's a warning for an elevator operator susceptible to the influence identified as Big Rock, Black Rock, with whom he had an entanglement in a previous incarnation. Another reading chronicles the haunting of a child who, as an adult 2 centuries earlier, persecuted witches in Salem. Given the complexity of these cases and what psychiatrists and priests too encounter in the field, Dr. Gallagher should be applauded for giving voice to a subject dismissed by his medical colleagues as mere superstition. But where the American Psychiatric Association maintains no official opinion, that might help possessed individuals, and Dr. Gallagher advises psychiatric counsel and Vatican-certified exorcism. Casey's recommendations may prove to be the most effective. His preventative advice includes massage and osteopathy, use of low-voltage impedance devices as the Radiac, positive and uplifting prayer and meditation, and in cases featuring karma, forgiveness for oneself and others by filling one's mind with the holy. Casey said there's no room for the demonic. One can even take a more proactive approach, as described in a reading conducted for a woman battling disincarnates. Similar to a priest's marching orders at an exorcism, Casey instructs her to demand that the intrusive spirits acknowledge the supremacy of Christ. Should the spirits fail to comply, the woman must order their expulsion. Get thee behind me, and I will have no part with thee. She is to proclaim, through his name only will I accept direction. So this is posted in the Edgar Casey readings, and Sidney D. Kilpatrick, the writer of this article, is the new co-editor of Venture Inward, and with his wife, Nancy Kilpatrick. Sidney is a New York Times best-selling author. His books include Edgar Casey, An American Prophet, which is widely considered the definitive biography of the most documented psychic of our time. His most recent book, co-authored with his wife Nancy, is published by ARE Press, entitled True Tales from the Casey Archives, Lives Touched and Lessons Learned from the Sleeping Prophet. So I'm sorry that's so long, but it's pretty interesting, and I'm glad Christine found it and sent it over to me. So what we see here is an alignment in great part with the information coming from the channeling series with Carl Mollison. Now, things are kind of mixed up in terms of causes and symptoms and sequences and whatnot. But like I said earlier, the most important thing is that we found somebody here in the mainstream who's seems to be acknowledging the aspect of entity attachment or demon possession. So I had the great pleasure and opportunity recently to interview Christy Allen, also known as Christy Knight, who is a precious soul and a great survivor of the Mormon Church version of MK Ultra / child sex abuse and satanic rituals that include, unfortunately, the sacrifice of human babies. She recently gave her testimony to the ITNJ, which is the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, and that their website's also going to be in the article that goes along with this live stream at Why Is This True? And she gave her testimony there in April at Westminster in the UK about her life and her experiences. So I'm also going to include a link to the video where you can watch her recorded testimony, which is along with many other testimonies they had there, is something really worth taking the time to watch. Her story is very similar to the stories that we've learned about years before from Kathy O'Brien and Bryce Taylor, also known as Sue Ford. Bryce Taylor wrote the book Thanks for the Memories, and Kathy O'Brien wrote the book Transformation of America. Um, so, so we did the interview. I think it was on Thursday, and we made it public on Saturday. I think it was yesterday or Friday. But it was wonderful. I'm so glad I met her. I hope to meet her in person sometime. She doesn't live nearby. She lives in, I think she still lives in the Utah area. So she was a little concerned that we were having too much fun during the interview, given the topic. But I reassured her that we were not being flippant about it, and a little levity in situations is needed in situations like this. Some laughter and joy makes for a better healing, and I think she agreed with that. Um, it's if you were to take that in a serious tone, it would be almost overwhelming, because this is not only her whole life, but all of her sisters' lives too. She comes from a very big family, and a lot of them are lucky to still be alive. It's an amazing story. So one thing I would have liked to explore further is how the ET and dark spirit agenda is behind these satanic programs. That's one thing that we really didn't get into thoroughly. We didn't have time, and we just met, and there's so many things that we could have discussed. But that was one of the things that if we ever do a follow up, it would be fun. It would be fun to get into. Um, so so she talked about, the cabal, the Illuminati, the Mormon Church, and all of those structures that operate behind the scenes to support this satanic ritual, child abuse, the sacrifices, and everything else. And so I wanted to talk about the ET connection. What role did the ETs play in all this, and how did that start? And what about ETs and mind control? What about ETs and sex slavery, the off planet slave colonies that we know exist, and the energetic harvesting? And perhaps more importantly, how the cure is well within our grasp if we're willing to accept a partner in the form of that being that created us humans. And of course, I'm talking about the Lightworker Healing Protocol and the effectiveness of healing the perpetrators and even the ones above them who happen to be the aliens and dark spirits running planet Earth at this time. So, her testimony opens up to the door that leads directly to this phenomenon, which is so poorly understood. It's not even on their radar screens, or they somehow packaged it into this idea about, oh yeah, there's aliens, but some of them are positive and some of them are negative, and the positive ones are they're not interfering with our free will, but they got our backs and they're going to help us with ascension and and just all these different narratives that really neatly avoid what we've learned through the channeling series. So that leads us up to the two recent cases, one near I-19 in Valencia, south of Tucson, Arizona, at an abandoned Xemix plant that was investigated by Veterans on Patrol, and also Craig Sawyer at vetsforchildrenrescue.org, where there is some evidence pointing towards child sex slave trafficking. And then there is the video of the U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley from Oregon trying to visit and inspect the facility in Brownsville, Texas, that is supposedly housing children who are separated from their parents who have applied for political asylum in the U.S. Now, in the article that goes along with this live stream, I put some links so you can look some of this stuff up. And so we went, so we got into this. So on Tuesday, I went ahead and I put together a question for Creator in a private channeling series with Carl Mollison. And so I'm going to read that here. Now, this is redacted. Since this is from a private channel, I'm not really comfortable posting this on the as part of the article. So you're going to hear it now, but you're not going to be able to read it. At some point, it may end up on the Q&A section on getwisdom.com. But this is very dark, and it's not good news about what we're learning about these two sites, and specifically the one in Brownsville, and what's happening with these kids that are being separated into these government-run programs. Child Protective Services is another one. They should definitely be on the radar right now. So this is a little long. That's why I started. I actually followed up with a more specific question because I didn't feel like my question was being specifically answered in the first answer to the first question. So this gets quite long. So that's why I'm here, starting early, finishing late, and then we'll get over to the webinar. So I apologize, but I really think that this is something for the people who care about this stuff, and what Christy told us in her interview with me and what she gave to the International Tribunal on Natural Justice. This is what we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to read the question, I'll read the answer, I'll read the follow-up question, I'll read the answer, and then we'll get off. And you can get back to your Sunday, okay? I don't have that many people with me today. There's 5 of us. It's just 5 people. I think somehow on this video, this live stream, maybe the chat got turned off, and I apologize for that because I'm not seeing any chats show up. So anyway, let's get on with this, and then you can follow up by reading the article if you'd like. Okay, in a recent private channeling with Creator via Carl Mollison, I asked, what is happening to the children at the facility in Brownsville, Texas, run by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, where Senator Merkley was told that this former Walmart may currently be housing hundreds of refugee children who have been separated from their parents. And these are people who are coming into the country requesting political asylum. Okay, here's the answer. This is an ongoing practice by those who foster illegal immigration and serve as the agents for guiding groups across the border. They are very often allied with predators, organizations involved with sex trafficking, and will give extra monetary rewards for attractive females and for children in particular. There's quite a large market for feeding the pedophile community. The appetite is large, and the numbers involved, who are the consumers, is large. And that is very depressing to learn, but this is the reality. This is an example of how they orchestrate their operation. It must be done in secret. It must be done in proximity to points to convey individuals, usually via highway, but must be clandestine, not to risk inadvertent discovery by someone trespassing in the area. And this is the reason why you see these warrants that were clearly intending to hide from public view. And this particular operation was for the illegal crossing of the southern border from Mexico, and is not infrequent flight of the children who come across. There are many who are taken from families, and there may be even killing of the parents to keep them quiet. In most cases, they will get away with their crime because it becomes untraceable for immigrants with no legal standing to complain and to get serious help with an investigation. And in any case, by then it would usually be too late anyway. The children are rapidly transported elsewhere to prevent any possibility of being identified and reunited, which could trace forensically back to the perpetrators. This is a very sordid affair, and we know it is of keen interest to you, and that is because it is a serious problem. And so you are the divine agent on the scene who can do some true and helpful work to expose things. So you have been on this trail for some time. Your channel has asked about this independently as well, and been told a similar story. That the use of children, both for sexual pleasures as well as for ritual sacrifice, is proceeding unabated, and if anything, it is growing. This is true across the board in terms of all form of depravity, and it is because of the degree of human subjugation and manipulation through mind control. Things are worsening, not improving. The age of enlightenment is skipping over the current generation, and this is because of the growing darkness and cloud looming over the world as a whole, because of the extraterrestrial agenda. They see all manner of corruption as assisting the intended goal, to bring about annihilation. In that context, there is a growing recklessness to pull out all the stops, so to speak. And regardless of potential backlash or rising fear and the expressing concerns and demanding the authorities do things on the part of the public, they see this as a benefit to them by sowing more discord, creating disarray, causing greater burdens on the established order to track all these doings and do exploration and investigation, and to fill their plate so full of unmet needs that nothing truly gets done about the big picture. So it is very much a death of a thousand cuts that is underway. You see this environmentally, you see it with the dysfunctional institutions in government, the lack of support by law enforcement, and the subjugation of the military where it might be useful, and the expenditure of bullets and bombs in areas that only cause suffering and do not advance a human cause whatsoever. This is business as usual, but worse than usual, and that is why these practices proliferate. They will, in fact, be a bellwether for the influence of the extraterrestrial and the dark spirit cohort on humanity. So it is a sign of the times, to be sure. So I come back and I say, okay, thank you. So specifically, at this facility, then, these children are either being sold or are being taken off planet into slave colonies, or is it something benign, more benign than that? And here's the answer. It is in some ways worse than that because many are slated for being ritually sacrificed victims or ritual sacrifice victims. So they will be killed in a torturous fashion to appease the appetites of the depraved followers involved with cabal, as involved with satanic worship and other practices of the group you know as the Illuminati. It is the cohort excuse me. It is the cohort of Anunnaki human hybrids for the most part, at the core of things, but they have corrupted many other humans who are involved with them, with various organizations serving them in some fashion. But through mind manipulation and subjugation, and through heavy spirit infestation and internal corruption of morality, separation from their consciousness, and a dimming of the light within, they fall prey to the same perspectives and often are drawn into this dark vortex bit by bit, and then become accomplices, at which point there is no backing away, because they understand it would be death for them, because they would be seen as a danger to security. So they will participate willingly or unwillingly. The number of groups involved in this is large and growing because many in the lineage are spreading and forming new seeds, new chapters of individuals engaged in such practices. And this is why it is so very widespread. It is done with increasing impunity, feelings of being impervious to harm because the law enforcement can be minded in a way to look elsewhere, to disregard any suspicious observations of their doings, or even someone coming forward with an eyewitness account. They will be disbelieved and their entreaties will be dismissed as fanciful exaggerations, the perpetrators of hoaxes, or simply wanting to cause trouble for someone with no other evidence in hand other than their tall tale. Nor will they be listened to by the media. So it is a good recount of these things, as unpleasant as they may be, because they are quite telling in terms of the depth of depravity being inflicted on humanity. You learn much from seeing what is the worst in human life. It is very much an indicator of what work is needing to be done, and the great gap between human and divine, and the need for closeness once again. And that's the end of the answer. So there remains a high probability that more of these stories are going to come out, and some of them will be staged, and the actors will be manipulated to send many off on unproductive investigations, all the while having notions about victims, perpetrators, and justice that will do many things, but not much healing. There will be good investigators and healers involved who will be set up, duped, and discredited. Watch for it. It will happen. Many will be caught, and many will be protected. Much of the drama has great potential to serve the dark alien agenda because throughout all of it will be human inability to correct the situation adequately. Only the ETs can, and so the mantra will be, it'll get so bad, you'll hear this, only the ETs can save us from our greed, our sociopathic tendencies, and our general incompetence. And if you hear that, run. It's not true. So it is our responsibility to point out when we can, and as often as we can, the divine perspective on human justice. What we think of as justice, putting people in prisons, putting them to death, cutting off body parts, or torturing them, or humiliating them in some public show trial, that is not going to prevent further instances of these types of crimes. And that kind of justice has nothing to do with healing. The perpetrators are also victims. And if they are first healed, the immediate result is fewer victims. It stops the cycle, and it stops it once and for all. And the healing that we're talking about is the Lightworker Healing Protocol. So we need more people to learn this learn this type of high-level prayer and start applying that prayer into these situations, like the Brownsville Walmart and the Cemex plant south of Tucson. All those players, all those actors, irrespective of how you identify them as perpetrators or victims or whatever. It doesn't matter if they're government employees, contractors, child, little babies, whatever. If you can identify them, if they touch your heart, do the healing for them. That's how we get out of this mess. Not notions of human justice. That just perpetuates the problem. I want to thank those who have made donations to support the work being done at Wise is True. It has been about 8 days since any donations have come in, so we're kind of in a state of need again. So if you can see it your way to clear, if you can see your way clear to support my work financially, please consider doing so. I really appreciate your support and your prayers. It makes a huge difference and enables me to continue doing this work full time. Take care, and I hope to see you at the webinars. And I love you guys. Have a great Sunday. Bye bye.